Hey, good morning. Welcome. Let me turn the music down and yeah, um, there looks like, think I got over the sound issues from last week or 2 weeks ago. And I apologize for that. I really do, but I want to thank any of you who've taken the time to join me for this live stream. And depending on where you are, it's possibly a long weekend. Maybe some of you are going to have to catch this later as the podcast or what have you, because it's you're traveling, you're spending time with loved ones, which you should be doing versus seeing me. Just got a bit of light spillage here. Just hang on. There we go. Much better. Not that I dislike the bright sunshine, but it does tend to affect the video lighting a little bit. So once again, thank you for joining me. It's Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada. But today I want to talk about, well, whether your safety culture is healthy or not, if it's a sick safety culture, and what you might think about is some of the warning signs and what to look at. So yeah, we're going to talk about, and so let's get into it right now without further ado. Is my safety culture sick? And that's the title of this live stream. But a few things first. Let's talk about the chat rules. Because realistically, I want to encourage that you're all participating, and if you're catching this later on, the same thing should apply to comments. Like, introduce yourself, please. Participation is excellent. It's very hard to have community if you're not having collaboration and discussion and chat. So by all means, pop into the chat, introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, how long you've been in safety, and what have you. Because chat and participation are nice. Really and truthfully, they are. Next thing, of course, is feel free to answer questions if you see them in the chats or in the comments. Collaboration is awesome. Ask and answer. Answer. Your knowledge and opinions count. They really do. You got to where you are by effort. It's not certainly by luck or anything else like that. So your questions count, your answers count, your knowledge and opinions count. So by all means, pop into the chat and say something. I appreciate it. And if you see a question and I don't get to it, answer it. The other thing, please, be civil. No name calling, no insults. It's pretty hard to have community and collaboration if you're attacking someone or name calling. So let's be civil, okay? And above all and beyond all, this is not professional advice, no matter what. There's no contracts being signed, no money changing hands, no kind of gratuity or anything else. So yeah, it's just an opportunity for me to provide a platform for community more than anything else. That was my dream and intention when I first started the channel and started the live stream, is to build a community. And one thing I've noticed too is a lot of people like to log on and take in the live stream after. So by all means, please, if you want to, just leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I appreciate your thoughts. And I've done a lot of testing. I don't wear earphones to monitor myself because, like, I just don't like them. I really don't. So I do testing beforehand. I test the stream and I also do a test recording. So if the sound is all working well, great. If it's not, please let me know in the chat or comments afterwards. I appreciate it by all means. So anyway, moving on in this, let's talk about, before we get into it, what's new in the channel. And what's new going on. And, well, things might be rumbling, maybe. I'll talk about that in a sec, as I have a sip of tea. And in fact, I've got to top it off. Um, Well, since the current dictatorship here in Canada has decided they can't keep up with the welfare payments that they've been making to the media shills, and they don't like independent news sources as competition, so they found it advantageous to hobble the different mediums and the different platforms. And so what they've done is they created this, they have Bill C-18 and C-11, the Online Streaming Act, which basically is saying if you're carrying Canadian content, you've got to pay the people. And I mean, realistically, I'm Canadian. I don't have anything with a flag on it except for maybe my hard hat, one of my hard hats hanging up. But and YouTube pays me a little bit. I'm not that interesting. I guess I don't have that many followers, but it's not a big deal. But at this point, what's happening is platforms like YouTube, Facebook, X, Spotify, so forth, they're going to have to comply. They're going to have to, by sometime in November, register with the CRTC, which is an archaic bureaucracy here in Canada that's supposed to regulate transmission. Now, originally, when it was things like over-the-air stuff like television and radio signals, it almost made sense, but they still didn't do a good job. They regulated Canadian TV to the point that most people actually didn't watch because it was boring. And then when things got loosened up and we allowed for other content to come in, then yeah. But one of the things that's always been a problem here in Canada is the news. Part and parcel because we have what's called a CBC here, which is a government-funded thing. And I want you to think about this. If you have the government funding a news source, don't you think the news source is going to be beholden to say what the government wants to hear? Or wants them to say? Yeah, there you go. So really and truthfully, nothing, the CBC is nothing more than media shills for the government. But they're not making it. In fact, they still really don't have a big market share, and they don't do any advertising anyway. On their websites, they're starting to do a bit more, but they don't over radio, and nobody watches TV. Like, I mean, I think there's like 8 people in Canada that watch them because they're that terrible. And so what's happening is with the fact that YouTube, Facebook, X, Spotify, and so forth are going to need to comply with this. And soon enough, it will drill down further that the Liberals, if they want, they'll have much things to say about it. You think about it, there's going to be a need for smaller creators to register with CanCon if they want to be further up. So I'm going to start adding stuff to Rumble and X as I get the time. Stay tuned. I'll still be on YouTube. It won't matter. But I don't know if what's going to happen is especially with the need to register in CanCon, is it going to affect the algorithm? I don't see, because YouTube still oversees that algorithm, but who knows, there might be a requirement depending. And I'll get to that in just a sec. And part of the reason that I'm doing this is a lot of the advocates on the left-hand side, leftists, in other words, they aren't, I don't think they're fully grasping it, but once you're required to register for anything, any kind of registration process has conditions. With any registry, it really doesn't matter. There will be conditions. And typically with these government conditions, they're more than likely going to be very ambiguous and veiled and convoluted, and likely will shift depending on the bureaucrat in charge and what their particular interpretation of it is, or if they just think they're pleasing their masters that they serve. So, of course, like always, if you have an opinion, I want to hear it. Let me know. Like, go ahead, weigh in the comments, weigh in the chat, whatever the case may be. But when I'm going to have to dilute things a little bit. And it's not solely for business. It isn't. I enjoy doing this. I love creating. I love creating videos, etc. However, I don't know what's going to happen. So I put them on other platforms and have the different platforms link amongst each other. Now, this brings me to the next subject. And really, I didn't do any safety news. There is lots there. And if you, and I'll talk about what might be the problem in a sec. there is lots out there, and I'm finding, of course, the commonalities. Number one, hazards weren't assessed before work began. Number two, inadequate controls for the hazards and risks that were present were not implemented. Number three is inadequate worker training for the tasks that they're going to be performing. And finally, number four was just outright negligence and not bothering to follow the legislation and the rules. So none of those, and you know what, they're a commonality. But the part where I've got maybe is a lot of times for streams or videos or whatever the case may be, depending on the subject, as long as it's applicable and appropriate, I will Google certain things and look for safety headlines in the news. But just recently, what Google has said is they're not going to be carrying Canadian links anymore. They're slowly going to start phasing it out, part and parcel, because even though the government has been trying to say, well, we'll acquiesce on this and we'll change this, it's still not enough. And it's still going to be making it problematic. And let's be serious. If I was in a business and the government was trying to oversee things, I would do and tell me what conditions I can do business in to a certain extent. I mean, we still have to obey the law and so forth. But if they were making that business problematic and my profits were going down and shareholder investment and interest was going down, as a result, chances are I'd likely move on. And so I want to put it out there and you can tell me your thoughts. And what I'll do is I'll capture some of this that I'm going to be talking about and with this news process, and I'll put it on as a separate video as well. But for those of you that want to see or think that there's news links that some of your colleagues and counterparts and the rest of the Provoking Safety community might find of interest, by all means, hit me up through the contact method on my YouTube channel. And if you find it's problematic, let me know in the comments and I'll do something else. But send me those links. And then what I'll do is I'll start featuring them and talking about them, or I'll aggregate them and pick out what's best or applicable for the next live stream. And of course, I'll give you credit. I'll say, hey, Kevin Barrett from Calgary brought this forward, or whatever the case may be. Or Dave from Toronto brought this out, or so forth. And that even applies to those of you that are from different locales, different countries. And if you think it would be interesting and applicable to us and you want to put in a little warning as well, or here's the reason why you found it interesting and applicable, I'll feature that as well. So yeah, just let me know your thoughts on that. Okay. And now, of course, this brings me to current safety events. And as I mentioned last live stream, October is Fire Safety Month. Both in Canada and the US. And of course, Canada, we have a lot of other convoluted things. So we mostly focus on Fire Prevention Week, but I still like to look at it as a month. And in October, there's some things that you should consider, okay? And so that brings me to the featured video, and that's looking at your fire extinguishers. They do have a best before date, okay? So if you're doing them at work, and I did a recent poll on how much you're involved with as safety professionals regarding fire prevention in your workplace. And a lot of you said many different things. Like a lot of you said you contract it out, you're not involved. Some of you say like take an active part in it and do a lot of it. And then others of you have just a bit of a peace thing with a little bit that you do with it. Either way, have a look at this video. I will post a link in the description after I'm done. I might start just posting featured videos in the description prior to starting the stream. I'm just thinking about that. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it, but yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. Now, the other thing that's coming up and that I'm going to be doing is Hazard Identification Assessment and Control Reboot. As I said before, I watched some of those older videos. Well, I struggled to because I found some of them so cringy. The sound wasn't that good. The lighting was terrible. I was learning. What can I say? And even some of the material could be improved. So I'm going to start working on that as the weeks go by. And then as a request that's gone on, I'm going to be working on an origin of the 5 whys. It might take me a couple of weeks to get done, but that's one of the things I'm going to be doing. Now, some of the other requests I've had is tips on having difficult conversations and so forth. So between the live streams, I'll be using those and maybe culling and picking some of that out as I'm doing the live streams and featuring them in videos afterwards. But I'm also going to be doing them as small little tidbits. I created another playlist called Being Safety and just adding some, not necessarily how to do health and safety tips, but more how to be a health and safety professional. Just some of the lessons I've learned, and unfortunately, most of them the hard way. And so I'll also be doing that. So that's a couple of things, but the highlights were like the hazard identification assessment and control reboot, origin of the 5 whys, and then some of the other video things I'm going to be working on. But anyway, the other thing I promised you is this live stream session on safety culture. But last week or last live stream, the sound was horrible. I'm sorry. I tried to watch some of it and I couldn't stomach it. And so for those of you that held out through the entire video, wow, thank you. And thank you for your perseverance and persistence. But what I'm going to do is just a quick recap, okay, just of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Now, there's really no secret here. And I talked about team sports and even teams that are a very diverse composition, made up of all sorts of different people from different groups and different walks of life. They come together on the field, on the diamond, on the ice, whatever venue, and they have one goal in mind: either put the puck in the net, the ball in the net, the ball over the fence, whatever the case may be, and win. That's what's on their minds. That's what they set out for. And the result is obvious, usually, and no matter what. Some of you may say it's a poor analogy because some people are going to lose. Some teams are going to lose. And by all means, they might lose. and it might happen. But they tried their best and they did something with the note of success. So I want you to consider this. If we approached safety with that same thing, with that collective mindset, with the victory in place, in other words, having a healthy and safe workplace, to make every facet of their business involved with safety, or safety involved with every facet of their business. And then you know what's going to happen is we're going to see a reduction in injury and illnesses. We're going to see that it's just going to happen. It's going to happen organically. Why? Because we're focusing on the human factor. It's about the people is why we want to win, why we want to put that puck in the net, why we want to put that ball in the net. So accidents and illnesses are going to be reduced. The human factor really needs to be the ultimate focus on everything. And then profit and production become secondary. But if profit and production are secondary over the human factor, then guess what? Profit and production will go up. Now, I want you to consider Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I talked about this last session as well. And the very bottom piece, if for those of you that are familiar with it, is the physiological needs that we need to have, things that we need as human beings. Food, clothing, shelter, etc., the basic needs. But here's a thought for you, okay? And that is that there's a relationship between the second layer as well, okay? And that's safety and security. Now, a job will help you get the first, the food, the shelter, the clothing. But without safety and security, how long will you have that job? How long will you be able to work? And then if you don't have that safety and security, there's no ability to achieve the next three, which is belonging and social connection, esteem, and self-actualization. Understanding that, it becomes this kind of self-defeating process if a company doesn't build a safety culture and doesn't attempt to steer everyone towards that idea, that notion of working safer, avoiding injury. And really, there's nothing secret about the impacts of injury on an organization. In fact, like I've said a few weeks ago, and I've said before in other live streams and videos, that the soft costs can be as much as 7 times the actual visible costs of the damage, the injury, and the increased WCB premiums. Thinking about things like retraining, retooling, fixing broken things, etc., and even lost production. Those costs go up. So a company that is growing its earnings or reducing its cost is said to be improving its bottom line. Now, both. Let me try that again. Most companies aim to improve their bottom lines through 2 simultaneous methods. One is increasing revenues, and obviously, more money coming in, less money being spent equals profit. Okay, that's just it in a nutshell. Simple economics 101. But the other thing is, one of the other biggest ways is to cut costs. And the ability to do that is to reduce injury and illness. And I mentioned to him a couple of weeks ago, Peter Drucker, and he said the first aim or goal of an organization is not to increase profit, but to minimize loss. And if you think about it, say your profit was steady and it was not going up, but not going down. If you wanted to increase and change that line to go up a bit, reduce your costs and reduce your overhead and start examining your losses and see where they are. So like anything else, please let me know in the chat and if you want, or the comments, and I can forward you some of these studies that I looked at in case you want to make a case with your superiors. So keep in mind that once again, a safety culture is as a group of people or an organization that's placing a high value of safety and believing in the benefits of practicing safety. So it's a group of people simply not only saying that safety matters or safety is necessary, but living it out in their actions while meeting their corporate goals and expectations. So I want you to consider this. You safety professionals out there, for instance, a safety culture is more valuable than you might think, okay? With a healthy safety culture, you no longer have to push for compliance. In fact, if you combine a robust safety culture with promotion of sound safety principles, you're no longer coercing into compliance. Instead, what you can do is start coaching into continuous improvement. That's just a thought. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, okay? Yeah, it's just what I think, and one of the things I've found in doing this. So here's the question, okay? Is it just a case of the sniffles? Or maybe your safety culture has that nagging cough that won't go away. Or maybe worse, maybe those aches and pains that are being displayed are something that's more sinister underlying, right? So something to think about and something to consider. So here's the question. Does your safety culture have a fever? Okay. Does it seem unwell? Okay. Now, it's no different when you or someone close to you feels sick. No matter what, we start looking inwards. How long have I been feeling like this? It's only been a day. Not a big deal. Drink lots, chicken soup, maybe some medication, sleep well. Okay. But has it been going on for a long time? And next step is maybe you're going to have to see a doctor. Now I'm forming a parallel for here. And the idea is the doctor, well, they're going to start to ask questions. Okay. No matter what, as when you go see a medical professional, or your first aider in the field, or whatever the case may be, you develop a patient history. And it's no different here. So now, by all means, this is going to have to require a systematic approach. It really will. However, you can start anecdotally. Okay, there's no need to start gathering facts and figures. Let's do a survey. No, start looking at things anecdotally. And I'll talk about in the next live stream, we're going to talk about the facts and figures and the things that you need to do to start gathering some concrete data, not some anecdotal data, some concrete data so you can start showing. And for those of you that really love graphs and pie charts and bar charts and all of that stuff, you can start to create those things. Okay, so what you want to do is start with observations. Okay, and this doesn't have to be difficult. It's start with conversations. Okay, like I said, it's anecdotal at first, but start having those conversations to see if it needs to point you in the direction. And if you see it pointing in a certain direction consistently, then you can start looking at a targeted approach. And once again, once you start that targeted approach and start compiling the data, along with the data, you can start to look at corrective actions working towards a solution. That's pretty simple. So once again, look at your problem, and we'll get more into it in a sec, but look at your problem, approach it systematically, start gathering data, use that data to understand what you're experiencing, then putting in the corrective actions to look towards a solution that's going to be sustainable and solve the problem and lead you down that road to that continuous improvement. Okay? It's really not a huge formula. So the next question you have to look at is, what are the signs and symptoms? Remember, and to put this into plain language, as I said before, I used to teach all levels of first aid up to advanced first aid and then emergency medical responders. So signs are what you're going to see. Symptoms are what the patient or casualty tells you. So approach it. You're going to approach it the same thing as, what do you see? And then what are you being told? Or also, what are the answers to the questions you're asking? And remember, if you want the right answers, you have to be asking the right questions. So one of the first things you are going to likely start noticing or seeing, and it may not be the first thing, but are you experiencing a high rate of injuries, but there's minimal reporting? All of a sudden you hear, yeah, Joe's off. Well, why? Well, he hurt his back. I didn't receive an incident report. Okay. Or even worse, there's no effort to implement corrective actions. Or if you're looking at that, they're met with a resistance to the point of futility. Wish I had the Borg voice in there. But anyway, so you need to think about that. What are you seeing? Are you seeing lots of people off? Or one of the things, and I've been in retail outlets and I tend to look at things with the safety professional's eyes. And I saw someone limping doing their work. Now, did they sustain that injury on the job? I don't know. But here's the question. If they did, why aren't you doing something about it? And if they didn't, why aren't you modifying that work? Because that working with a present injury could end up leading to a workplace injury. Stop and thinking about that one too as well. If you're letting workers work with injuries that they've encountered outside of work, then you should be modifying their duties so that you don't end up with workplace injuries. That might be something for another video down the line. Now, the next thing is, safety is not on executive meeting agendas or mentioned during safety meetings. And as a safety professional, chances are you're present during senior management or management meetings. Or if you're not, guess what? That's another indicator that you might have a sick safety culture. Because if you're not present at part of the decision-making meetings, I'm not talking when they decide that they're going to pull the trigger and change a policy or something, but when there's need for safety input and you're not there, that's a bad thing. Okay? So if you're not present at those meetings, that's a good indicator. Or if safety is not on the agenda, and I'm not talking, well, does anyone have a safety minute here? I belong to an organization. That's how they used to start safety meetings. And no, it's safety should be on the agenda. Hey, here's this month is Fire Prevention Week or Fire Prevention Month. Let's just have a quick talk about this or whatever. If safety is not on the agenda, or hey, let's review any incidents that have occurred and are the corrective actions in place. And depending on the level, we might want to know, are corrective actions, are injuries trending up or down, depending on the level. But if it's not being discussed or you're not part of the discussion, then you've got a problem. Or workers are dismissed for unsafe acts, but there's no investigation to match it. Okay? I had a conversation a long time ago with a person who was an employee at lumber manufacturing, sawmilling area. And he said, yeah, if you cross the chain, immediate dismissal. They just take your locks back and walk you out the door and you're gone. Really? Well, two things. That's not cool. There's got to be some other way. I understand, because when you're crossing a chain, you could be stepping into a drive and it's a terrible situation. But why aren't there any investigations for those unsafe acts? Why aren't they being logged and investigated at least as part of it? Because I asked that question, are they being investigated? Nope, just immediate dismissal, gone. Okay, if that's happening and there's no look at prevention or corrective actions or figuring out a better way, then you've also got a problem, okay? Now, of course, guess what? There's more. One of the other things I found, and I've made a career of rebuilding safety cultures and rebuilding safety committees, and a disengaged safety committee. What I mean by this is you'll see it. The committee shows up, and once again, I can never, ever remember to bring my, oh, look, I've got a prop cell phone here. They show up, but this is what you see during safety meetings. And they're looking at their Instagram feed or whatever the case may be. And I see it. One of the bad things is organizations almost have this reward for being on the safety committee. But if people are too engrossed on their phones or socializing, is that money even well spent? The business isn't getting done. And so if you have disengaged workers, and I'm not talking the odd person who's not pulling their weight and you've got to figure out a way to turf them. And that's also, if there's no way to get rid of people who aren't pulling their weight on their safety committee, depending on your jurisdiction, like here in Alberta, it has to be part of your terms of reference for the safety committee. But if you're not doing that, then guess what? It's easier for a person to pull you off a chair or a stepladder than it is for you to lift them up. So it also could be indicative of an unhealthy safety culture. So look at your committee. What do you see? And I'll talk about in the next live stream some other ways to gather data about your committee. But the other one is disengaged workers. Okay? What do they look like? What do these disengaged workers look like? Once again, you're talking about safety, and are they all looking at their phones? Okay. I can't tell you enough. Like I've gone to toolbox meetings where the safety professional or the person who's tasked with health and safety is doing their best. And honestly, everybody's like this. Okay. I got a slide coming up that'll show you and you'll understand. But not just disengaged workers, but is the main focus on production. And I can remember once I talked to a director of a section. And when I was talking about the need for consistent workplace inspections, and like she said to me, well, yes, we missed them last quarter, but we have work to do here, Kevin. And I understand everybody has work to do, but you need to, and honestly, Organizations need to produce. That there is no way, shape, or form that's about that. Organizations need to produce. But the focus can't be just on production. What you need to do and what needs to be and what's indicative of a healthy safety culture is where safety is woven into the steps of that production. Because if you're focusing on safety being part of the production, then you're not going to lose production. It's a simple formula. But there's still organizations that just focus on production and leave safety out of it. And if that's the case, you've got a problem. Now, the other one, and this is going to be quite easy to see, but safety is not part of your mission, vision, and values. In other words, it's not present in the corporate doctrine. If safety is not present in the corporate doctrine, it won't be present in the office, in the yard, or on the floor. Okay? And it has to be. Safety has to be. And if you're to think about it, the vision is where we want to get to as an organization, where we want to be, down the road. Okay? The mission is how we're going to get there. But the values are the steps that we're going to take during that mission to get to our vision. And if safety is not any part of any of that, then it's all for naught. So, once again, if you think about it, disengaged workers, the moment you start talking about safety, out come the phones, or they get picked up if they've already been out. And literally, I worked in an organization where I would part would come to me to talk about safety, and I would literally, one of my fellow managers would end up getting a call or, oh, hold on, I got to go out and take this, and off they go. Now, I don't know if it was a coincidence, but my goodness. So thinking about it then, and these are some of the most serious, okay? Disengaged Safety Committee, huge, because I've talked about that in other videos, how safety committees are the stewards of your health and safety program. They're a driving cog in your safety management system, and they help you as a safety professional to carry that load. Disengaged workers are bad because if they're disengaged and safety isn't part of their mindset on the job, then chances are injury rates are going to go up, or at least at minimum, the possibility of them occurring is going to go up. And then once again, main focus can't be on just production. Okay. And how are you going to field your vision? What's your mission statement? And what's your vision and how you're going to get there? And what are the values? Okay. So in short, basically safety is absent in the corporate culture at many levels or even all levels. Okay. Or even worse, safety becomes this superficial thing. And we've all been there in some way, shape, or form, where safety is talked about in meetings. But then go out in the floor and it's a different story. Or out in the yard, it's a different story. You see close calls or near misses all the time, and you're wondering, why is that happening? And it might be because of that focus on just getting that job done. And I mean, I applaud the get her done attitude, but let's get her done safely. So it becomes platitudes versus actionable talk. And yeah, I was once told, even as a safety professional, I was greeted once as I was walking into a meeting by the director of this section that I was walking into the safety meeting for. And he said, "Oh, you're the new safety manager. Here's a piece of advice. Rent, don't buy." And that's also a good sign of an ailing safety culture. So just like your personal health, sometimes you need to start looking for some indicators, looking beyond just the usual aches and pains. Like say, for instance, my blood pressure got high. I had to do something about it. So you need to start looking at indicators. So in the next live stream in a couple of weeks, we'll look at some of those vital signs, some of those health indicators, and then you can start gathering the data and look at a trend. Because like say, when you go to the doctor and you say my blood pressure is high, depending on it, they may say, well, we're going to put you on medication and then I want to start seeing you so often so they can develop a trend. Or they may say, want you to recommend diet and exercise. Same thing. They want to see a trend and see if it's going to fix things. So you want to start looking for trends. Now, As usual, though, please, in between now and then, bring your comments. I appreciate them. Reach out via anything on the stream, or pardon me, on the channel. I have different social media venues, or platforms. So by all means, reach out. So here goes Q&A. I haven't had anybody enter the chat, so I'm just making the assumption that you're all taking advantage of the long weekend. So please do. I would rather you enjoy a long weekend wherever possible, because like anything else, whether it be exercise, rest is a necessary part of exercise. And if it's good work, if you're doing good quality work, one of the ways that it's going to be evident is you're getting rest. Or one of the days that you're going to be assured, or one of the ways that you're going to be assured of doing that good work is you're getting the rest. Okay? That rest is absolutely necessary. So, thank you once again for those of you that took the time to join me, and thank you in advance for those of you that are watching afterwards and leaving comments. If you have questions about anything in the presentation, or even general questions, by all means, leave a comment. I appreciate it a whole bunch. I really do. I appreciate all the interactions. And one of the things I missed during the summer, and maybe it was because I took a lot of the summer off, and I'm sorry, but it was the question and answer. I really did. I enjoyed the Q&A a whole pile. So by all means, bring me the questions and answers. Yeah. Nothing coming in on the chat. So I'm assuming you don't have questions and answers, and that's fine. So up next, it's how do I measure these vital signs? How are you going to do it? And so I'll talk about how you can start. And no, survey is going to be down the road. Yes, surveys are valuable. However, most people don't like filling out surveys because we're inundated with them every time we buy something, every time we go to a YouTube channel, every time, like always, there's surveys. So I'm a big proponent of leaving those off, maybe even using them as a waypoint check, but we'll talk about them. But next week, or next live stream, we're going to talk about measuring the vital signs, what vital signs to measure and what to look for. Like we have vital signs when we're looking after a casualty as a first aider or paramedic. We'll look after breathing rate and ability to breathe, pulse rate and characteristic. We'll look at the Glasgow Coma Score. We'll look at blood pressure, and we'll look at blood oxygen levels, etc., and maybe blood glucose levels as well. And that helps us to get this overall picture of a patient and enables us to even dive deeper. And once you get to the end road with the professionals, it also enables them to start looking at how they were then and develop a trend and start a treatment. And that's why we want to hedge you towards that. Yeah. So, once again, thank you very much for joining. Please, by all means, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel or share it and let others know about it. I appreciate that. And of course, if you had any comments, please leave a comment. I appreciate them. Okay. So anyway, there we go. This is Kevin signing off. I'll see you again for those of you that join on the streams in a couple of weeks. And hopefully in the next week or so, I'll have another video up. I did talk about us recently about being more than a hard hat. So if you haven't done that, watch that video. It just talks about the training and education we learn as safety professionals. But as a safety professional, you might be able to share it amongst some of your other work colleagues who think that all you do is walk around. Anyway, take care. Bye for now.